Hello everyone, this is Dr. Flores with Kool Derby Academy and now the CAPM PMP live seminar series. This is a recording and we are going to discuss collect requirements, which is in the scope management knowledge area. Now don't forget that we have to know the 5 process groups, the 10 knowledge areas. Scope management is one of the 10 and collect requirements is one of the 47 processes. Do you remember, let's see if you remember, which process group are we in right now? Which process group are we in? If you said planning, you are correct. There are 5 process groups: initiating, planning, executing, monitoring and controlling, and closing. At this point, we are in planning. I also want to remind you that because we are approved, Kool Derby Academy is approved by PMI, the Project Management Institute, as a registered education provider, you get a PDU. So let's just say you're preparing for the PMP exam. This is one of your 35. And for those of you who are already PMP, you've already passed the PMP, then you get 1 PDU for each one of the sessions, and 60 is what you have to get over 3 years. And there you are. You will have your educational credit. And we do these once a week to try to give you as much information as possible, whether you are preparing for the exam or plan to take it down the road. And I want to mention that any of you who have passed the exam and have benefited from using the seminar series, the live seminar series, please make sure you get back with us. Share your knowledge. I'd be more than happy to have you have a session where you speak about your experience and anything you can do to help others pass the exam as well. So the agenda doesn't really change. We go through at a pretty good pace. This is normally a live seminar series, but when I'm not available during normal USA hours, we record it so that we don't skip a week. I want to make sure you're always getting the information that you need. And we'll have a welcome. We'll talk about the topic. We'll discuss the key terms. And what I do is I go through and pick out the key terms and that I think you can benefit from. These are not all the terms, obviously, but enough to get us going for the particular week. Then I write a couple of questions for you, try to make them hard and try to trick you a little bit. Just like on the exam, we have a Q&A and we confirm the date and time for the next meeting, and then we adjourn. Now, one thing I do want to stress is that you could be the smartest person on the planet and you still could fail the exam. The exam is tricky. The exam is designed to provide a few right answers or 1 or 2 right answers, and then there's the best answer. The best answer is the one that they're looking for, and the people who are prepared for the PMP or the CAPM are the ones that can go in and eliminate the distractors. You want to get rid of the ones that obviously are not the answer, and then you can focus on the one that is considered the best option. We have a question here for you today where that is and where there is an example. All right, so collect requirements is a process. Okay, collect requirements is a process of one of the 47. The definition: collect requirements is the process of determining, documenting, and managing stakeholder needs and requirements to meet project objectives. Okay, so we are in the planning process group. We are in the scope management knowledge area. I recommend that you know scope management, that you know all the processes in order. For example, we had plan, scope, management in the previous lesson. Now we collect requirements. Well, after we collect requirements, we can define the scope, know the order. The PMI loves to test you on what do you do first, collect requirements or define the scope? Well, you define the scope after you collect requirements. We collect requirements from stakeholders. You see here the definition: collect requirements from stakeholders. A stakeholder is a PGO, any person, group, or organization that has a positive or negative influence on the project. Now, the key benefit of this process, collect requirements, is that it provides the basis for defining and managing the project scope, including product scope. Now, I want to cover that real quickly here, the difference between project scope and product scope, because PMI, again, likes to trick you. And if you haven't studied, I promise you this will be problematic for you. Project scope refers to all the work that it takes to do something, to create something. And then product scope is what you have left. So for example, let's say we're going to build a train station in your city. Let's assume there isn't one, or we're going to create a nicer one, a newer one, or whatever. Well, all the designing, all the work that it takes to create the train station is the project scope. Project scope. But when we are done and people can use the train station, they can go to each terminal platform or whatever and jump on a train. They can look at the screens. They can eat in the shops. They can use the facilities or whatever. Everything that's tangible and touchable is the product scope. In other words, product scope is what we have left. When you say, I would like this train station to have 20 platforms, then that's the product scope, because the scope is defining the tangible product or what you have left when you are done. Make sure you know the difference between these two, because they are on the exam. These are just little tips that I give you along the way that I know make a big difference. All right, the discussion of key terms. First, business requirements. These requirements describe higher level needs of the organization. Know what I just said, higher level needs. Key term to let you know what the answer is. Higher level needs of the organization as a whole, so you're looking at it enterprise-wide, such as business issues or opportunities, and the reasons why a project has been undertaken. This is the strategic discussion. Higher level needs, people in high places in the echelon of the organization, the highest section or department of the company, the executives, the directors. These people come together to talk about, hey, what should we do? Okay, so those are business requirements. Now, functional requirements. These requirements pertain to the behaviors of the product, such as processes, data, and interactions with the product. So I use an example in the ITIL class that I teach, and that's the ITIL Foundations course. V3 is where we are right now. If you haven't taken that, that's something for you to consider. Okay, so functional requirements pertain to what does this product do? If you have an iPhone or an Android device, well, if you buy a phone, you're supposed to make phone calls, text, you're supposed to message, or whatever you do with that phone, that's described as functional. What does the phone do? These are functional requirements. Different from non-functional requirements. These requirements supplement functional requirements and describe the environmental conditions or qualities required for the product to be effective, such as reliability, security, performance, safety, level of service, supportability, retention, purge, and so on. In the ITIL course, we refer to non-functional requirements as the ilities. The ilities, because they're like back-end work, they ensure that the phone is reliable, that it's secure, that it has supportability, and so on. The fact is that non-functional tend to be more technical in nature, and functional are more customer type things, the way we use something, the user type of requirements. So think about that when you're preparing for the exam, because I know these three are going to be on the PMP and probably on the CAPM as well, so you should know the difference. There are more that are described in the PMBOK. Sometimes students say, man, that exam was really tough, something weird came up. And it wasn't weird, it was one of these requirements maybe, it's just that we didn't study them. These are not hard once you think about this. Business requirements, higher level. Functional, more user-based, and non-functional requirements, more tech-based. The ilities. You see how you can develop ways to remember them? Not too hard, are they? All right, let's get going with the first question. The company's executives are poised to launch a new project to expand operations overseas. However, a downturn in the economy has made the CEO reluctant to approve the initiative. During a high-level meeting, the director of marketing stressed the importance of expansion because the timing was beneficial to make the move. What is the best description of the requirements provided by the director of marketing? All right, what's going on here? So we've got company executives that are poised to launch a new project, right? Why? Because we want to expand abroad, overseas. Now we move on. However, there's a downturn in the economy that has made the CEO reluctant to approve the initiative. Okay, so this gives us more information, but really adds no value to the question. So who cares? I mean, even if when there's no downturn in the economy, CEOs are reluctant or somebody's reluctant to do something. But now we move on to, we have a high-level meeting. And the director of marketing, who is a top person in the company, stressed the importance of expansion, says the timing is right. So what is the best description of the requirements provided by the Director of Marketing? Well, are they functional? No, really no, because the Director of Marketing has really nothing to do with these kind of requirements. They might understand them and such, but they are high-level people in the company. So functional and non-functional are gone because the Director of Marketing is not going to have the technical knowledge, like the ilities, right? Supportability, reliability. They're going to know about them, but they're just not in that realm. So you can kick out alpha and delta. Now you have business requirements and stakeholder requirements. So now it gets a little harder, right? So now some of you will say, well, the Director of Marketing is a stakeholder, and you are correct. You are right. However, what is the discussion about has nothing really to do with the stakeholder, the person, or the role. Has nothing to do with that. It has something to do with it. It has more to do, let me change that. It has more to do with why are we doing this. The timing is right for expansion. Therefore, business requirements supersedes stakeholder requirements because the reason we're having the discussion is related to business opportunities and not as much related to stakeholders. It could be another stakeholder. It could be the CIO. It could be the CEO. It could be the operations manager. It could be the director of technology. I don't know. I'm going through a list here. It could be any other stakeholder who says it. But the reason we're doing it is related to business requirements. I hope that makes sense. This is not an easy one once you get down to Bravo Charlie, but the answer is Bravo. So the explanation, business requirements now, the Director of Marketing is providing a reason why the project should be undertaken, which makes this a business requirement. There is an opportunity for market expansion, high-level needs. Please note that stakeholder requirements refer to the needs of a stakeholder or stakeholder group. All right, does that make sense? I hope so. Hard, but important. All right, question number 2. The project manager is working with the team in the planning phase. The project requires the migration of confidential data from a legacy system to a cloud-driven customer relationship management solution, a CRM. Now, you don't really have to know what a CRM is, but it does help to kind of calm your nerves a little bit, right? The leadership team has stressed the importance of keeping the data secure. Okay? Knowing the sensitivity of information, the project manager convenes a cross-functional team to collect requirements and to address stakeholder differences, and the focus here is on consensus building. What type of data collection technique is the project manager most likely to use? Okay, we've got options: interviews, interactive webinar, C, facilitated workshops, and D, focus groups. Well, what's going on here? Well, we were told that the project manager is in the planning phase. This is somewhat helpful because it does describe what we are doing, but this is not what is going to give me the answer. The project requires a migration of data. All right, fine. That's important to know, and we're focused on keeping data secure. Thank you for the additional information. Probably not something that's going to give me the enough information to answer the question. Now, again, we come back with a sensitivity of information. Now, this makes a little bit more sense now. We've got sensitive information, so we have people that are coming from different departments, convenes a cross-functional team. The answer rests with cross-functional team, and they are collecting requirements, and the focus is on stakeholder differences and consensus building. This middle paragraph tells you everything you need to know. Now we're looking for a data collection technique, all right? So is it interviews? No, because interviews are focused on one-on-ones. This is not what we're talking about. Cross-functional teams are not one-on-ones. There goes A. B, interactive webinar. Well, I made that one up, but I guess you could say, yeah, the interactive webinars can be pretty cool because people are in, Alabama, and they're in Africa, and they're in, Australia, and I just used all my A's there. So they're in Europe, they're somewhere in Europe, whatever. Okay, so the answer is no, because interactive webinars, although they are effective, they're not always going to address stakeholder differences very well, and consensus building is going to be tougher just because of the remoteness. So, okay, I would just say B is not a good answer. C, facilitated workshops. You know what? If you looked at the second paragraph, convenes a cross-functional team, address stakeholder differences, and consensus building. Yep, all of these apply to facilitated workshops. Focus groups is another good answer, but it's just not as descriptive related to the answer, which is facilitated workshops. Focus groups is where you bring teams. They don't always have to be cross-functional. I could have a focus group from marketing. I could have a focus group from operations. You see where I'm coming from? So they could be subject matter experts related to quality. And in that case, they could be cross-functional, but not always. Facilitated workshops, by their very nature, are cross-functional. Okay, so that's the answer, C, Charlie. Facilitated workshops are focus sessions that bring key stakeholders together to define product requirements. Workshops are considered a primary technique. You see where technique was another keyword there for quickly defining cross-functional requirements for reconciling differences, stakeholder differences. Because of their interactive group nature, well-facilitated sessions can build trust, foster relationships, and improve communications among the participants, which can lead to increased stakeholder consensus. All right. Now, once we go through these, you probably say, oh, okay, now I'm not going to miss it. Probably, I hope that's what you're saying, because once I look at it, I go, no matter what they do to me on the exam, I'm going to be able to get it right. All right, I hope those were pretty good ones, because they do take some time to put together for you. And if you do have questions or comments, make sure you reach out to me. I'll make sure to get back to you. You can email me, or when we get back to our live sessions, I would be happy to answer those during the seminar. So we'll stay with the recordings for another couple of weeks, and then we'll go back to live, and we'll keep pinging you or polling you to ask what dates and times work for you. But of course, you have the recordings, and you get a PDU, so make sure you submit these. Share the information with anybody else who's preparing for the PMP. I think they'll find it of value. Anytime we go through these questions, as I noted to you before, it's not about knowing one question. What I try to share with you is how do you answer 5, 10, 15, 20 on the exam. All right, I'll see you next week. Goodbye for now.